My grandpa asked, "Do you like the house I bought you?" I said, "What house?" Then he I'm Sophia Miller. I'm 27 years old. In my family, I am known as the independent one. The fire crackled. The candles on the long dining table flickered. My grandfather, Edward, raised his glass of red wine, his eyes smiling at me from across the table. "Do you like the house I bought you?" Every fork froze midair. The only sound was the fire. My mother's wine glass slipped from her hand. It shattered on the hardwood floor, a splash of red like blood. "What house?" I asked. The silence in the room became heavy. It felt like no one was breathing. Grandpa's smile faded. He lowered his glass, his eyes turning from me to my parents. "Show me the deed. Now." That was the moment. That was the Christmas dinner when the Miller family's secrets finally and completely detonated. It was also the moment I realized I'd never been crazy for doubting them. It was the moment I knew my whole life had been a lie. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? That sounds nice, doesn't it? It sounds strong. But in my family, independent is just a polite word. It's code. It means the one we don't help. It means the one we don't have to think about. It means the forgotten one. While my parents, Thomas and Lillian Miller, posted photos from ski resorts in Aspen, I scraped together rent money. While they went to wine-tasting weekends in Napa, I worked double shifts at a cafe that smelled like burnt coffee. I live in a tiny one-bedroom apartment in Portland. It's on the 4th floor, and the elevator has been broken for 6 months. The heater in the wall coughs a weak puff of warm air, but mostly it just makes a loud clicking noise. I wear a sweater and 2 pairs of socks to bed every night from October to April. My parents have a 5-bedroom house in a gated community. It has a pool. It has a 3-car garage. They have a cleaning lady who comes twice a week. I once made the mistake of asking my mother for help. It was 2 years ago. My 15-year-old car finally died. The mechanic said the engine was gone. I needed a car to get to my classes at the community college and to my job. I called her on a Tuesday night. I was standing in the rain at a bus stop. "Mom?" I said, my teeth chattering. "My car, it's done. I don't know what to do. I can't afford a new one. I can't even afford to fix it." There was a pause. I heard her clinking a glass. She was probably drinking her expensive Chardonnay. "Well, Sophia," she said, her voice smooth and bright, "independence builds character. Look at this as a learning opportunity. You'll figure it out. You always do." Then she changed the subject. She told me about a new art piece they bought for the entryway. I hung up and cried at the bus stop. I didn't cry because of the car. I cried because my own mother heard me drowning and told me to learn how to swim. I took the bus for a year. I got up at 4:30 a.m. to make it to my classes. I saved every single dollar. I ate rice and beans for dinner. My father was no better. He called it tough love. "We're not going to just hand you things, Sophia," he told me once when I visited for Thanksgiving. He said it loudly in front of all their friends. "You have to earn your place in the world. We gave you a good start. The rest is on you. A good start." That meant they paid for my high school. When I turned 18, the tap turned off. They said it was to make me strong, but it didn't make me strong. It made me tired. It made me feel invisible. They never noticed the cracks. They never saw how lonely I was. They never saw how I was falling apart, piece by piece, while trying to pretend I was fine. They posted photos online. "Family is everything," the captions read. "So proud of our wonderful daughter," they would write under a photo of me from 5 years ago. It was all a lie. It was a performance for their friends, for the world. The only one who ever saw me, really saw me, was Grandpa Edward. He is my father's father, but he is nothing like my father. He is quiet. He is kind. His hands are rough from working his whole life. He built his own construction business from nothing. He believed in hard work, but he never believed in cruelty. When I was little, he was the one who taught me how to read. He was the one who came to my school play when my parents were too busy at a work dinner. He saw what they were doing to me. He saw how they held their love just out of my reach. Always. I remember when I was 22. I had just graduated from college, the one I paid for with scholarships and 3 part-time jobs. I was visiting Grandpa at his small, quiet house. My parents were in Europe for the summer. I was sitting on his porch, drinking the lemonade he made. I was so scared. I had no job, no money, and a mountain of student debt. I just feel so lost, Grandpa, I whispered. I was so tired of pretending to be strong. He sat next to me on the old wooden swing. He didn't say anything for a long time. He just watched the birds in his yard. Then he put his hand on my shoulder. His hand was warm. "You work harder than any of them, Sophia," he said, his voice soft. "I see you. I see how hard you try." I started to cry. I couldn't help it. "Don't you worry," he said. "They have their way, and I have mine. Someday, you'll have a place of your own, Sophia. A safe one. A place where you can just breathe." I cried into his shirt. I thought he meant it emotionally. I thought he meant that someday I would build a life for myself, far away from them, and I would feel safe. I thought he was just being kind, giving me hope. I never, ever thought he meant it literally. I never imagined he had already done it. I went back to my life. I got the job at the cafe. I found the drafty apartment. I kept scraping by. I kept watching my parents live their perfect, shiny life on a screen. I told myself I was fine. I told myself I didn't need them. But the truth is, a part of me always wanted them to notice. A part of me just wanted them to be my parents. That part of me was about to die. It was a Tuesday night, exactly 1 week before Christmas. The cafe was a nightmare. We were short-staffed. The espresso machine broke twice, and a customer yelled at me because his latte wasn't hot enough, even though steam was coming off it. I got home at 8 p.m. My shoes were soaked from walking through the slush, and my fingers were so cold they ached. I didn't bother turning on the main light in my apartment. I just kicked my wet shoes off by the door and sat on my lumpy sofa, still in my coat. My apartment was dark and freezing. I could see my breath. I stared at the wall, too tired to move, too tired to even make food. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It made a weak, vibrating sound against the sofa cushion. I ignored it. It was probably a work email or a reminder that my credit card bill was due. It buzzed again. And again. I sighed and pulled it out, my fingers stiff. I was expecting a text from my manager, asking me to cover another shift, but the name on the screen made my heart jump, just a little. Grandpa Edward. I felt a small, warm spark in my chest. He was the only person who called just to see how I was. My parents only called when they needed something or wanted to tell me what I was doing wrong. I swiped the screen. "Hey, Grandpa. Sophia, how are you, my girl?" His voice was warm, and it felt like a blanket. I tried to make my own voice sound bright, but I just sounded tired. "I'm good, Grandpa. Just got home. It's cold out. You eating well?" he asked. It was his standard question. I looked at the kitchen counter. I had half a loaf of bread and some peanut butter. "Always," I lied. He was quiet for a second. I knew he could hear the lie, but he was too kind to say it. Good, he said. "I'm just calling to check on you. Are you all set for Christmas? You're still coming to the dinner at my house, right?" "Of course," I said. Wouldn't miss it. This was also a lie. I dreaded it. Christmas was always a performance. It was a long, terrible day of watching my parents pretend to be proud of me while they bragged about their latest vacation. "Good," he said again. His voice suddenly had a little spark in it. A happy sound I hadn't heard in a while. "I'm glad you're coming, Sophia, because this year I've got a special gift for you." I smiled, even though he couldn't see me. I pulled my knees up to my chest, trying to get warm. "Grandpa, you know I'm fine with a sweater. Or socks. I always need socks." I was serious. "I had a hole in the toe of the pair I was wearing." He chuckled. It was a low, warm sound. "Oh no," he said softly. "This isn't a sweater, Sophia. This one is different. This one's already waiting for you." I didn't know what that meant. "Already waiting?" "Don't you worry your head about it," he said quickly. "Just get here safe on Christmas Day. I can't wait to see you." "I can't wait to see you too, Grandpa," I said. And that was the only true thing I'd said all night. "I love you, Sophia. Stay warm." "I love you too. Good night." We hung up. I sat in the dark for a long time, just holding the phone. It was the best I had felt all day. I thought nothing of his words. A special gift from Grandpa could be anything. Maybe he'd found an old photo album. Maybe he'd bought me a new heavy blanket because he knew my apartment was cold. The thought made me smile. Already waiting probably just meant he had already bought it. I finally stood up. My back ached. I turned on the dim kitchen light, filled a kettle with water, and plugged it in. I decided I would have a cup of tea for dinner. Maybe some toast if I felt ambitious. While the water heated up, I leaned against the counter and out of habit, I opened my phone. My fingers went straight to social media. It was a bad habit. It was like picking at a wound, and there it was. The first post on my feed. It was from my mother. It was a picture of her and my father. They were in Napa. It must have been from last weekend. They were at a long, beautiful table in what looked like a wine cave. The table was full of food. Bottles of dark red wine. Oysters on a bed of ice. They were surrounded by laughing, smiling people I didn't know. Everyone was dressed up. My mother was wearing a new silk blouse. My father had his arm around her, holding up a glass, toasting the camera. They looked so happy, so rich, so perfect. My eyes went to the caption she had written underneath the photo. 3 simple words. Family is everything. I stood there in my freezing, dark kitchen, my hands starting to shake. The kettle clicked off, but I didn't move. Family is everything. I stared at the words. I read them over and over, a joke. It felt like a sick joke. A joke I was too tired, too cold, and too hungry to even laugh at. Family is everything, but I am family. And I was standing in the dark, about to eat toast for dinner because I couldn't afford groceries until my next paycheck. Family is everything, but I am family. And my mother hadn't called me in 3 weeks. My father hadn't called me since my birthday in October, and even then, it was a 2-minute call where he asked me if I had a real job yet. Family is everything, but they were in Napa, drinking $1,000 wine and eating oysters, and I was here. The independent one, the forgotten one, the one who didn't count. I felt a sudden, sharp pain in my chest. It wasn't sadness. It was empty. It was a cold, hollow feeling. This is what they did. They lived this bright, shiny, fake life for the world. And they wrote captions like, "Family is everything," while letting their own daughter freeze in the dark. They were liars. They weren't just neglecting me. They were erasing me. They were pretending I didn't exist so they could have their perfect picture. Grandpa's words came back to me. A special gift. I can't wait to see you. He was the only one. The only one who even saw me as family. I closed the app. I couldn't look at it anymore. I made my tea and I sat on the sofa shivering. I didn't think about Grandpa's gift again. I just thought about how I was going to survive another Christmas dinner, sitting at a table with the 2 people who were supposed to love me most, but who couldn't even be bothered to see if I was still alive. I just thought about how to make my face look happy. I thought about what lies I would have to tell, so I wouldn't ruin their perfect family picture. I didn't know that. In 1 week, I wouldn't have to lie ever again. It was 3 days later, Friday, my day off. I hated my days off. They were just long, empty stretches of time where I had to face my life. I had to face the bills piling up on my small kitchen table. I had to face the silence. I woke up early, even though I didn't have to. The sun was trying to shine, but it was a weak gray light. My apartment was still freezing. I made coffee. I sat at my wobbly kitchen table with my old, slow laptop. It was time to pay the bills. Or at least it was time to look at the bills and figure out which ones I could pay and which ones I would have to push to next week. The electricity bill. The internet bill. The minimum payment on my student loan. I stared at the numbers. My bank account balance was a small, sad number in the corner of the screen. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. That feeling of running and running and running, but never getting anywhere. It felt like I was slowly suffocating. I took a sip of my coffee. It was bitter. I clicked open my email inbox to find the electric bill confirmation. My inbox was mostly junk mail. Ads for things I couldn't afford. Special offers. I was about to delete a new one when I saw the subject line. I stopped. My hand froze on the mouse. Subject: Congratulations on the successful sale of the Pacific Lane property. I just stared at it. It had to be junk mail. It had to be a mistake, a scam. Someone trying to get my bank details. I didn't own any property. I was renting a 400-square-foot box that I could barely afford. But Pacific Lane, my stomach didn't just drop. It felt like it fell out of my body. Pacific Lane. Why did I know that name? I closed my eyes. I thought back. I was with Grandpa. It was summer. We were in his old truck, the windows down. We were driving by a lake. He had pointed to a small, empty lot of land. It was covered in trees, and you could see the blue water shimmering through them. He had smiled. It was a dreamy, faraway smile. That's Pacific Lane, he had said. That's the spot. Can't you just imagine it? A little house right there. Big windows. You could sit in the morning and drink your coffee and watch the sunlight on the water. He had looked at me. It would suit your sunlight, Sophia. I hadn't known what he meant. My sunlight? He had just nodded. The sunlight in you. This place is quiet. It's peaceful. It's my dream spot. I hadn't thought about it again. Not in years. It was just one of those things Grandpa said. One of his little dreams. But here was this email. Congratulations on the successful sale. My heart started to pound. A sick, thudding beat against my ribs. This was not junk mail. The sender's email address looked real. It was from a realty group, Lakeview Properties. Slowly, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type, I clicked on the email. It was a form letter. Dear Sophia Miller, thank you for your recent transaction. This email confirms the successful closing and sale of the property located at 412 Pacific Lane on December 18th. We are pleased to have assisted you in this matter. A full copy of the final statements has been sent to your primary address on file. Congratulations. Lakeview Properties. I read it once. I read it again. Dear Sophia Miller, sale of the property, December 18th. That was 3 days ago. Primary address on file. What address? My parents' address? They got all my important mail. They had since I left for college. They said it was safer and more organized that way. I'd never had a reason to question it. A cold, sharp feeling pricked my skin. It felt like ice water dripping down my back. Sold, but how could I sell a property? How could I sell a property I didn't even know I owned? How could I sell Grandpa's dream spot? I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the cheap floor. I walked to the window. I looked down at the wet, gray street. Cars were splashing through puddles. My mind was racing. Grandpa, I've got a special gift for you. Grandpa, this one's already waiting. Oh my God. Oh my God, he had bought me the house. He had bought me the house on Pacific Lane, the safe place, the place to breathe. He had bought it for me, and this email said I had sold it. 3 days ago. No, I whispered to the window. No, this was a mistake. It had to be a terrible, complicated mistake. I grabbed my phone. My fingers were numb. I fumbled with the screen, almost dropping it. I needed to call someone. I needed to fix this. I scrolled through my contacts. My thumb hovered over Grandpa Edward. No, I couldn't. I couldn't call him, sounding like a crazy person. I couldn't ask him, did you buy me a house that I accidentally sold? What if he hadn't? What if this was all a scam? I would sound ungrateful and insane. I needed facts. My finger moved up the list. Mom. I would call Mom. She and Dad handled all of Grandpa's important business. They were the ones on his bank accounts, helping him with investments. They managed his portfolio. They would know? They would know if this was a mistake. I pressed the call button. I put the phone to my ear. I tried to get my voice ready. I needed to sound calm. I needed to sound casual, like I was just curious. If I sounded upset, she would shut me down. She always did. It rang once, twice. She picked up. Sophia, is something wrong? Her voice was bright. A little annoyed. I had interrupted her day. Hey, Mom, I said. I tried to make my voice light. I faked a small laugh. Sorry to bother you. I have a really random question. I'm in the middle of getting my nails done, Sophia. Can it wait? No, it's fast. I got a weird email and I'm confused, she sighed. A loud, impatient sound. What is it? It's about a house. A property. On Pacific Lane? The silence on the other end of the line was not a normal silence. It was not a thinking silence. It was a frozen silence. It was a caught silence. I could hear the tiny, tinny sound of the salon in the background. A distant whirring. Mom? She hesitated. It was too long. It was a full 3 seconds of pure, dead air. No, she said. Her voice was different. The brightness was gone. It was flat and cold. What do you mean, no? I asked. I mean, no. It was nothing. Grandpa looked at it, but the deal fell through. It was a long time ago. It's nothing. She was speaking too fast. Oh, I said. My heart was thumping. That's weird. I got an email that said, It doesn't matter what the email said, Sophia, she snapped. Her voice was sharp. Too sharp. It's probably a scam. You need to be more careful online. Now, stop digging into things that don't concern you. It's handled. It's not your business. Don't go digging into things that don't concern you. She always said that. She said it about family finances. She said it about their trips. She said it about anything she didn't want me to see. But this time, I heard something new. Underneath the anger, underneath the coldness, her voice was shaking. It was small. It was tiny. But it was there. It was fear. My mother was afraid. "Okay, Mom," I said, my own voice quiet and steady. "Okay, sorry to bother you. Fine. I have to go. I'll see you at Christmas." She hung up. She didn't say I love you. She didn't say goodbye. She just hung up. I lowered the phone. I looked at it in my hand. The deal fell through, but I have an email that says it sold 3 days ago. Don't go digging because you're afraid of what I'll find. I looked back at my laptop screen. Congratulations on the successful sale. She wasn't just lying. She was terrified. And I knew, in that single freezing moment, that my parents had done something wrong. I sat there staring at the wall for a long time after my mother hung up. Don't go digging into things that don't concern you. Her voice was an echo in the room. The fear in her voice. The way she didn't just lie, she snapped. She was like an animal, cornered, protecting something, protecting my money, protecting my house. The coldness in my apartment seeped into my bones. But there was something else too. A new feeling. It was a cold, sharp anger. It felt like a piece of glass in my stomach. She thought I would stop. She thought I would be the good, quiet, forgotten daughter. She thought I would just obey like I always had. She was wrong. I turned back to the laptop. My hands were shaking, but not from the cold anymore. It was Adrenaline Lakeview Properties. I clicked the link in the email signature. It took me to their website. It was a fancy website with beautiful pictures of million-dollar homes by the water. These were not houses for people like me. They were houses for people like my parents. I looked for a recent sales section. I found it. I clicked. I typed Pacific Lane into the search bar. My breath stopped. There it was. 412 Pacific Lane. A picture of the house. It wasn't just a lot. It was a house. A beautiful, small, cedar-shingled house with big windows, just like Grandpa had described. It was tucked into the trees. It looked warm. It looked safe. Under the picture, there were 2 dates. Date of purchase, October 14th, 2 years ago. Date of sale, December 18th, 3 days ago. My mother's voice. The deal fell through. A long time ago, a lie. A clear, cold, stupid lie. He bought it. He bought it 2 years ago. I needed to see the names. The public listing didn't show the buyer or seller. It was just a record of the sale. I looked at the email again. Dear Sophia Miller, this confirms the successful closing. We are pleased to have assisted you. The realty company thought I was the seller. They had sent this to my email address. My email, which I had used for all my college applications and financial aid, the one my parents had on file, they must have given it to the realtor. They thought they were just sending a confirmation to a file. They never thought I would actually read it. They never thought I would be looking for it. I took a deep breath. My heart was a hammer. I knew what I had to do. I found the contact page on the website. I found a name. Mark Jennings, senior agent. His was the name on the bottom of the listings. I picked up my phone. I had to try. I had to know my voice would shake. I didn't care. I dialed the number. A woman answered. Lakeview Properties, this is Janine speaking. Hello, I said. My voice came out as a whisper. I cleared my throat. Hello, may I please speak to Mark Jennings? It's about a recent sale. One moment? I'll transfer you. It rang twice. This is Mark. His voice was booming, confident. The voice of a man who sells million-dollar homes. Hi, Mr. Jennings, I said. I was trying to sound older, more professional. My name is Sophia Miller. I was the seller on the 412 Pacific Lane property that just closed. Ah, Ms. Miller. Yes, congratulations on the sale. A quick one. Your father, Thomas, handled everything beautifully. Very smooth. My stomach turned to ice. Your father, Thomas, handled everything beautifully. Yes, I said. My voice was tight. He's great. Look, I know this sounds silly, but I think the final confirmation email you sent me, I think it went to my junk folder and I accidentally deleted it. The one with all the final papers? For my taxes. I need it for my taxes. It was a good lie. It sounded responsible. Oh, absolutely, he said, not even hesitating. No problem at all. I have your email right here. I'll have my assistant resend the entire closing packet. PDFs of everything. You'll have it in 5 minutes. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you so much. My pleasure. You have a happy holiday, Ms. Miller. Happy holiday. I hung up the phone. I stared at my inbox. I hit refresh. Nothing. I hit refresh again. My whole body was vibrating. I was going to be sick. Refresh. An email popped up. Subject, FWD, closing packet, 412, Pacific Lane, from Janine, J. Clarkeye LakeviewProperties.com. To Sophia Miller. Dear Sophia, as requested, here is the full document packet for your records. Please let us know if you need anything else. Mark Jennings. There were 4 attachments. 4 PDF files. My hand was shaking so much I couldn't click the mouse properly. I took my other hand and held my right hand steady. I clicked the first file. Purchase agreement. October 14th, 2 years ago. I scrolled to the signature page. Buyer. Edward Miller. I felt a wave of love for my grandfather so strong it almost knocked me over. He did it, he really did it. I closed it. I clicked the second file. Quitclaim deed. October 21st, 2 years ago. It was a legal document. I scanned the words I didn't understand. Grantor, Edward Miller. Grantee, Sophia Miller. I read it again. Grantee, Sophia Miller. He had bought the house, and then 1 week later he had put it in my name. It was mine. For 2 years, while I was eating toast for dinner, while I was crying at the bus stop, while I was freezing in my apartment, I owned a house, a beautiful, safe, warm house, my grandfather's gift. This one's already waiting. He wasn't telling me he was giving it to me at Christmas. He was telling me he was finally going to tell me about it. It was a surprise. The tears came then. Hot, angry tears. They blurred the screen because I knew what the next file would be. I clicked the third file. Resale agreement. December 18th, 3 days ago. I scrolled down. Past the legal jargon. Past the sale price. A number that made me feel dizzy. I scrolled to the signature page. Seller. Sophia Miller. It was my name. It was not my signature. It was a child's signature. A sloppy, rushed, desperate attempt. And right underneath it, another signature. Seller's authorization. As financial guardian. Thomas Miller, my father. My father signed it. He told them he was my financial guardian. He told them he had the right to sell my property. And my mother? I clicked the last file. Acknowledgement of funds transfer, a wire transfer confirmation. The money from the sale was sent to a joint bank account. Account name, Thomas and Lillian Miller. My mother. They did it together. They stole my house. They stole my grandfather's gift. They stole my one safe place. My hands stopped shaking. They went completely still. I stared at my father's signature. I stared at my forged name. They had sold my inheritance. They had sold my future, and they were lying to Grandpa's face. They were going to walk into his house on Christmas Day, eat his food, drink his wine, and lie. I thought about my mother's voice. Don't go digging. I thought about my father. Independence builds character. Tough love. They weren't giving me tough love. They were robbing me. They were using me as their backup bank account. All those years telling me to be independent. It was so I wouldn't ask for anything. It was so I wouldn't look too close. It was so I wouldn't notice what they were taking. I leaned back in my chair. The cold, gray light of the apartment felt different. It was the cold, clear light of truth. I had been a victim. My whole life, I was the one they left behind. Not anymore. A plan started to form in my mind. It was as sharp and as cold as the glass in my stomach. I wasn't going to call them. I wasn't going to email them these papers and scream. If I did, they would just lie. They would gaslight me. They would say it was a misunderstanding. They would say they were managing it for me. They would say I was ungrateful. They would say I was crazy. No, I was done being the crazy one. I was going to let them do it themselves. I was going to let them walk into Grandpa's house. I was going to let them sit at that beautiful table under the candles with their fake smiles. I was going to let Grandpa ask his question, and I was going to give my answer. They would expose themselves. The truth wouldn't come from me. It would come from them. I saved the PDFs. I saved them to my desktop. I saved them to a USB drive. I emailed them to my own secret second email address. I had the truth. I had the paper. Christmas dinner wasn't just a dinner anymore. It was a stage. And for the first time in my life, I was the one who knew the ending. The next 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, were a blur. I went to work at the cafe. I steamed milk. I wiped counters. I said, "Have a nice day," over and over and over. My mouth smiled, but my mind was miles away. It was in a cold, dark place, rereading the PDFs on my laptop. Seller's authorization, Thomas Miller. Seller, Sophia Miller, forged. I felt like I was two people. There was the Sophia on the outside, the quiet girl making lattes, and then there was the Sophia on the inside. She was a different person. She was cold and she was sharp and she was very, very patient. I was waiting for Christmas on Monday, Christmas Eve. I put the first part of my plan into action. I had bought my grandfather a gift weeks ago. It was a beautiful thick wool scarf in a dark green. I had saved for 2 months to get it. I also had the small, cheap gift I was forced to buy for my parents, as I did every year. A bottle of wine for Dad, a scented candle for Mom, the required tokens of affection I couldn't afford. I put Grandpa's scarf in a nice box with a real ribbon. I put my parents' gifts in a wrinkled bag from the drugstore. At 2 p.m., I took the bus to my grandfather's business office, Miller Construction. It was in an old brick building downtown. He was still the owner, but my father, Thomas, was the president. My father was the one who had the big new office on the top floor. Grandpa kept his old small office on the ground floor. He said he liked to be near the dirt. I walked in. The lobby was empty except for the receptionist, Karen. She was an older woman, very kind, who had been with my grandfather for 30 years. She had known me since I was a baby. She always had a bowl of mints on her desk for me. "Sophia," she said. Her face lit up. She stood up from her desk. "Merry Christmas!" What a surprise. "I thought you were coming tomorrow." "I am," I smiled. I tried to make my smile look real. I wanted to drop this off for Grandpa. I know how chaotic tomorrow gets. I held up the green box. "Oh, that's so sweet of you," she said, taking the box. "He's not here, I'm afraid. He went home early. Your father is here, though. He's in a meeting upstairs." My stomach went tight. "Oh, that's okay. This is just for Grandpa. I have other gifts. For them." Karen's smile became a little smaller. A little tighter, she knew. She had seen everything for 30 years. She knew exactly who my parents were. "Well, I'll make sure this is put aside for him," she said. She looked around the empty office. He's been a little stressed, Sophia. This time of year." I nodded, my voice going soft. "Is he okay?" She hesitated. She lowered her voice even though no one was there. "Your parents were just here. It's always so loud when they visit. Your father, he's been in and out of here all week, in Grandpa's files. Organizing, he calls it. It's put your grandfather on edge." My blood went cold. "In his files? Really? Oh yes. They had a big fight about it this morning, I think. About some investment. Your father kept saying it was handled. Your grandpa just got very, very quiet. That's when he went home. Handled. The same word my mother used." I leaned against the desk. I faked a look of confusion. I made my voice small. "Karen," I said. "I'm so worried about him. And I'm also really confused. My parents, they keep me out of the loop on everything." "Oh, I know, sweetie," she said, her eyes full of pity. "It's just, Grandpa talks to me sometimes, but he doesn't give me details. He talks all the time about how proud he is. About my house." I let the word hang in the air. Karen blinked. Her pity turned into confusion. "He talks about it to me, too. He's so thrilled. He says you're finally all set up." I looked at her, my eyes wide. I put all the pain, all the real pain into my expression. "My what?" I whispered. Her face fell. "Oh dear, did I speak out of turn? I'm so sorry." No, I said, shaking my head. I looked down at the floor. "It's just, my parents handle everything. I'm just trying to get my paperwork in order for the new year. I don't even know what I have. They just tell me to sign things. Or they don't tell me at all." I looked up at her. "He's proud of my house?" "What house?" Karen's face was pale. She believed me. "She saw the victim. The Pacific Lane house, dear," she said in a low voice. "The one he bought for you. He was so happy. He said it was the perfect safe place. He said your parents were handling all the paperwork, the taxes, everything, so you wouldn't have to worry. He did? Yes. He set it all up. He even keeps a file for you. He calls it Sophia's file. It has all the important papers. I felt my heart stop. He does? Yes, it's right. Right in here? She walked over to a big gray filing cabinet. It was old, metal, not the new shiny ones my father had. This one was locked. She pulled a small key from a chain around her neck. I really shouldn't, she whispered, looking over her shoulder toward the stairs. Karen, I said, my voice shaking, which was real. Please, I just want to see. I just want to know what he did for me. My parents? They won't tell me. That was all it took. The idea that my parents were hiding things from me. She knew it was true. She opened the drawer. It was full of files. She pulled one out. It was a thick green file. In my grandfather's strong, neat handwriting, the tab said, Sophia. He wanted this one kept separate from all the business files, she said. He said this one was family. She handed it to me. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was not a small file. It was thick. My grandfather, Edward Miller, was a man who kept records. And on top, the first document. The original. Not a PDF, not a copy. The real watermarked embossed paper. Quitclaim deed. Grantor. Edward Miller. Grantee Sophia Miller. 412 Pacific Lane. My name. My house, signed by him. Dated 2 years ago. I ran my thumb over his signature. He really did it, I whispered. The tears that came to my eyes were 100% real. They were tears for him, for his kindness. Of course he did, Karen said, smiling. He loves you so much. And then, stapled to the back of the deed, was the next document. Karen didn't know about it. It must have been put there by my father. He must have come in here to organize the files, and he must have attached this. To keep all the Sophia paperwork together, it was the sale contract, the original. The one signed in blue ink. Seller, Sophia Miller. The fake sloppy signature. Seller's authorization, Thomas Miller. My father's real, arrogant, looping signature. And next to it, in the spot for spousal acknowledgement, because the house was in a community property state, and my parents were a team in all things, witnessed and acknowledged, Lillian Miller, my mother's initials, LM. They hadn't just stolen it. They hadn't just forged my name. They had done it together. And then they had put the proof of their crime right back into my file in my grandfather's office. The arrogance. The absolute stunning arrogance. They were so sure I would never look. They were so sure I was stupid. They were so sure I was the good forgotten daughter. Sophia? Karen asked. Are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. I looked up from the paper. I closed the file. I handed it back to her. My hands were perfectly steady. I'm fine, I said, my voice clear. I'm overwhelmed. He's so generous. I needed her to put that file back. I needed it to be here tomorrow. He is, she said, smiling. She put the file back in the drawer. She locked it. She put the key back around her neck. Thank you, Karen, I said. You have no idea what this means to me. Thank you for showing me. I feel so much better. Anytime, dear, she said. Now you go get ready for Christmas. And don't you worry about a thing. I won't, I said. Merry Christmas, Karen. I walked out of the office. I didn't take the bus. I walked. It was starting to snow. I walked the 3 miles back to my apartment. I couldn't feel the cold. I couldn't feel my feet. All I could feel was the white-hot, silent rage in my chest. Lillian Miller, my mother, she didn't just know. She didn't just lie on the phone. She had signed the paper. She had watched my father forge my name, and she had put her initials right next to it. The snow hit my face. It hit the windshields of the cars passing by. The world was quiet. It was like the snow was hushing everything. It felt like whispers. Whispers of betrayal. I got back to my apartment. The sun was going down. The room was dark. I didn't turn on the light. I sat on my sofa. I took out my phone. I thought for a minute. I couldn't call my own lawyer. I didn't have one. And I couldn't call just any lawyer. I needed Grandpa's lawyer. The one who set up his estate. The one who hated my father. I had heard my grandfather mention his name 100 times. Steele is the only one I trust. Steele knows where the bodies are buried. Mark Steele. I found the number for his law firm online. It was 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve, but the website said 24-hour legal counsel. I dialed. A man answered. His voice was sharp. Steele, Mr. Steele, I said. My voice was low and calm. My name is Sophia Miller. I am Edward Miller's granddaughter. There was a silence. I could hear him breathing. Miss Miller, he said. His voice was cautious. I represent your grandfather. I don't represent his family members? I know, I said. I'm not calling for me. I'm calling for him. You are his lawyer, and I am telling you that his interests are in danger. His son, Thomas, and his wife, Lillian, have committed wire fraud, forgery, and elder financial abuse. Another silence. Longer this time. Those are very serious accusations, he said. I know, I said. I have the documents. The PDFs from the realty company. The original deed. The forged sale contract. Where are you right now? He asked. I'm in my apartment. But that's not what I want. I don't want to meet you. I want you to be at dinner. What? Christmas dinner tomorrow. 7 p.m. at my grandfather's house. 1400 Willow Creek Drive. Miss Miller, I don't do house calls. You will do this one, I said. My voice was not the voice of a 27-year-old girl. It was the voice of a client. You will be there. You will bring proof. You will bring the original trust documents. You will bring everything you have on 412 Pacific Lane. You will bring the file on Thomas Miller's financial management of my grandfather's accounts. I can't just, yes, you can. You are his lawyer and he is being defrauded by his son. You have a legal and a moral obligation to protect your client. I am giving you the time and the place to do it. I paused. I let the silence stretch. I will be the one to open the door for you, I said. My grandfather is going to ask a question. My parents are going to lie. And then you are going to walk in. And you are going to tell the truth. I waited. I could hear him thinking. 7 p.m., he said finally. His voice was different. It was impressed. 7 p.m., I confirmed. And Mr. Steele? Wear a suit. I hung up. I sat in the dark. The stage was set. The actors were all in place. All I had to do was wait. Christmas Day. I woke up at 5 a.m. in my freezing apartment. I didn't sleep. I just lay in the dark, watching the hours on my phone click by. I got up. I took a shower. The water was lukewarm at best, but I didn't feel it. I put on the only nice thing I owned. A simple dark blue dress. It was 3 years old. It was the dress I wore to interviews, to funerals, to any event where I needed to look like I wasn't falling apart. I put on a little makeup. I did it slowly, carefully. I was trying to make a mask of the dutiful, quiet daughter, the one who would sit at the table and smile. At 4 p.m., I took the bus across town. The snow had stopped, but the world was covered in a thick white blanket. It made everything look clean. It made everything look peaceful. It was a lie. I got to my grandfather's house, 1400 Willow Creek Drive. It was a big, beautiful old house, but it wasn't scary big like my parents' house. It was warm. It smelled like wood and old books and the pine needles from the giant Christmas tree in the living room. My grandfather met me at the door. He hugged me. He held me so tight I could barely breathe. Sophia, he whispered. He just held me. I wanted to burst into tears. I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to scream, they stole it. They stole our dream. But I didn't. I couldn't. It would ruin him. I had to let him see it for himself. Merry Christmas, Grandpa, I whispered into his sweater. Merry Christmas, my girl. He pulled back. His eyes were so kind. You look thin. Are they feeding you enough in that city? I'm fine, Grandpa, I smiled. Go, he said, pointing to the living room. Warm up by the fire. Your parents are already here. Of course they were. I walked into the living room. And there they were. The picture of a perfect family. The fire was roaring. The room was lit by dozens of white candles. My mother, Lillian, was sitting on the sofa, her legs crossed. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere dress. And pearls. She was always wearing pearls. They were her armor. She was sipping a glass of champagne. My father, Thomas, was standing by the fireplace, one arm resting on the mantel. He was wearing a new, expensive-looking blazer. He was laughing, telling some story to Grandpa's wife, Helen. They looked up when I walked in. My mother's smile became a little tighter, a little brighter, a little more fake. Sophia, she said. Her voice was like a high, thin glass. There you are. You look nice. That dress is durable. It's practical, I said. My father walked over. He didn't hug me. He put his hands on my shoulders and held me at arm's length. Sophia, good to see you. Still working at that coffee shop? Yes, Dad, it's a job. Right. he said, patting my shoulder before letting go. He had already lost interest. Helen, as I was saying, the deal finally closed on the 15th. A total coup. The other guys never saw it coming, he went on, bragging about his deals, his business, his money. He was so confident. He was the man who had it all and who deserved it. He was the man who had just stolen a house from his own daughter and didn't have a single worry in the world. My mother watched him. Her eyes were full of pride. They were a team. I just sat in a chair by the window. I smiled. I nodded. I was the independent one, the one in the corner. Every nerve in my body felt like a tight wire. I was vibrating. I kept looking at the clock on the mantel. 30 p.m., 6 p.m., 6:30 p.m. The house smelled like roasting garlic and rosemary. At 6:45 p.m., Helen, my grandfather's wife, clapped her hands. All right, dinner is served. We all moved to the dining room. The table was magnificent. It was a long, dark mahogany table, polished so much you could see the reflection of the candles. There was a long green garland down the center. My father sat at one end. My grandfather sat at the other. My mother sat on my father's right. I sat on my grandfather's right. Directly across from my mother, I could see her. I could see the pearls. I could see her fake, polished smile. The food was passed. Turkey, mashed potatoes, green beans. The laughter was too polished. The smiles were too bright. My father told a long story about a business deal that had almost gone wrong, but that he, of course, had saved at the last minute. It's all about management. Edward, he said, raising his glass to my grandfather, you can't just buy an asset and let it sit. You have to manage it. You have to know when to move, when to sell. My hand was shaking under the table. I gripped my napkin. Is that so, Thomas? Grandpa said. His voice was quiet. He hadn't eaten much. Absolutely, Dad said, taking a big drink of wine. Lillian and I, we've made some excellent moves this quarter. Haven't we, darling? We have, Thomas, my mother said. She looked at me. Her smile was a small, sharp knife. It's been a very profitable year. I just smiled back at her. I took a sip of my water. My throat was so dry I could barely swallow. I looked at the clock on the dining room wall. 58 p.m. I felt a vibration in my pocket. My phone. I had set a silent alarm. I looked down at my lap. I turned the ringer on. I turned the volume all the way up, that means p.m. I looked up from my plate. I just waited. My father was telling another story. My mother was laughing, a high, fake sound. My grandfather just watched me. He had been watching me all night. He knew something was wrong. He knew I was too quiet. He finally raised his hand. Just a little. My father stopped talking. The room went quiet. The only sound was the fire in the other room and the soft clinking of my father's wine glass. Grandpa Edward looked at me. His eyes were clear. He was my grandfather again. He was the man on the porch promising me a safe place. He smiled. A real, warm, happy smile. He raised his glass. I'd like to make a toast, he said. His voice was warm. My parents raised their glasses. They smiled. They were ready to be praised. To Sophia, my grandfather said, his eyes locked on mine. My heart stopped. This was it. Sophia, I know it's been a hard few years. I know you've been working so hard, all on your own. And I am so, so proud of you. I am proud of the woman you've become. Hear, hear, my father said, drinking. But I'm an old man, Grandpa continued. And I wanted to give you something. A start, a real start. A safe place, so... He leaned forward. His smile was so full of love. Do you like the house I bought you? Every single thing in the universe stopped. Every fork froze mid-air. My father's glass, halfway to his mouth, stopped. My mother's hand, holding her wine, stopped. The only sound was the fire. I looked at my grandfather. I looked into his kind, loving eyes, and I told the truth. What house? My voice was not a whisper. It was clear. It was calm. It was not angry. It was just a question. Shatter. My mother's wine glass slipped from her hand. It didn't just hit the table. It hit the floor. It exploded. Red wine. Red wine everywhere. On the white carpet. On her cream-colored dress. A dark, ugly stain. No one moved to clean it up. No one moved at all. My mother was staring at me. Her face was white. Whiter than the pearls. Her mouth was open. My father was frozen. His face was not white. It was dark. a dark, angry red. The silence in the room was not a silence. It was a sound. It was a loud, screaming, terrible sound. My mother's hand, the one that wasn't wet with wine, began to tremble. Her whole hand. It was shaking so hard she had to grab it with her other hand to make it stop. My grandfather's smile was gone. It was just, His face was a mask of confusion. He looked at me. He looked at my mother on the floor, surrounded by broken glass. He looked at my father, who was staring at his plate like it held the answers to the universe. Thomas, Grandpa said. His voice was not warm. It was not kind. It was sharp. It was the voice of the man who built a company from nothing. It was a voice I had never heard. He turned to my father. Thomas, Lillian, where is the deed? No one moved. My father opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He closed it. Edward, it's complicated, my father stammered. That was not my question, Grandpa said. His voice was ice. Where is the deed? My mother started to cry, but not real tears. They were small, gasping, fake sounds. Oh, Edward, it was a misunderstanding. Sophia is confused. She's just confused. I am not confused, I said. I looked at her. I am not. My father looked at me. His eyes were not the eyes of a father. They were the eyes of a man who had been caught. They were full of hate. You ungrateful little... Do not! Grandpa's voice cut through the air like a whip. Do not speak to her. He stood up. His chair scraped back. I will ask you one last time, Thomas. What did you do? And then, from the hallway, we heard a sound. The sound of the front door opening. The sound of snow being stamped off of heavy boots. My mother looked up, her face a mess of panic. Who is that? My father looked toward the door like he was hoping it was a savior. And then a man walked into the doorway of the dining room. He was tall. He was wearing a dark, perfect suit. He was holding a heavy leather briefcase. It was Mark Steele. He looked at the room. He looked at the broken glass. He looked at my mother's stained dress. He looked at my father's red face. He looked at my grandfather, who was standing, pale and shaking. And then, Mark Steele looked at me. I gave a small nod. He turned his gaze back to the room. I think I can help with that, he said. Mark Steele stood in the doorway. He was a tall man, and he seemed to block out all the light from the hallway. His face was like stone. It was a face that had seen liars and thieves for 30 years, and he was not impressed by any of it. My father, Thomas, stared at him. His face was a dark, angry red. Steele, he said. His voice was a low growl. What the hell are you doing here? This is a private family dinner. I am here as Mr. Edward Miller's legal counsel, Mark said. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the room. It was heavier than the mahogany table. He walked into the room. He didn't wait to be invited. He walked right past my mother, who was still kneeling on the floor, her dress ruined by the red wine. He didn't even look at her. He walked to the table and placed his heavy leather briefcase on the polished wood. The thud was the only sound in the room. Edward, my father said, turning to my grandfather. He tried to make his voice sound reasonable. He was trying to take back control. Edward, what is this? You called him? On Christmas? You're going to side with an ambulance chaser over your own family? My grandfather didn't answer. He was still standing, his knuckles white on the back of his chair. He was looking at the briefcase. He was looking at Mark Steele. And he was looking at me. He just nodded. Once. A small, terrible nod. It was all the permission Mark Steele needed. You asked for the deed, Edward, Mark said. I have it. He opened his briefcase. The clicks of the latches were as loud as gunshots in the silent room. He pulled out the first file. It was a green file. My file, Sophia, the one I had seen in Karen's office. Wait, my father said. His voice was a little higher now. A little more panicked. That's from the office. You have no right, Steele. That's private. It is my client's property, Mark said, not even looking at him. He laid the first paper on the table, right next to the half-eaten turkey. He turned it so my grandfather could read it. First, Mark said. The original deed. As you know, Edward, you purchased the property at 412 Pacific Lane 2 years and 2 months ago. Clean and clear, my grandfather nodded again. I did. Second, Mark said. He pulled out the next paper. The embossed original document. The quitclaim deed, dated 1 week later. Grantor, Edward Miller. Grantee, Sophia Miller. Your granddaughter. My mother, who was now standing up, made a small sound. Like a dying animal. You put the house in her name, Edward, Mark Steele said. It has been her legal and sole property for the past 2 years. My grandfather looked at me. His eyes were full of a terrible, terrible sadness. I know, he whispered. He knew he had. That was the gift. My father's face was slick with sweat. The candlelight shined on his forehead. It's just paperwork, Edward, my father said. His voice was getting loud. He was trying to bluster his way out. It was a tax strategy. A way to protect the asset. Sophia doesn't understand these things. It's complicated. I am not confused, I said again. My voice was quiet, but it made him stop. Mark Steele held up his hand. I am not finished. He pulled out the third document. The one I had seen as a PDF. The one from 3 days ago. And third, he said, his voice dropping. We have this. He laid it on the table. This is a resale agreement, dated December 18th, 3 days ago. The property at 412 Pacific Lane was sold. My grandfather just stared at the paper. Sold? He whispered. He looked at me. Sophia, you sold it. My father laughed. There was a horrible choking sound. See, she did it. She sold it, Edward. After all we did for her, she went behind our backs and sold it. She's ungrateful. She took the money, and where is the money, Thomas? Mark Steele asked. My father froze. If Sophia sold the house, Mark continued, his voice like ice, why was the full wire transfer for the sale, in the amount of $1.4 million, deposited into a joint bank account in the name of Thomas and Lillian Miller? The room was gone. The air was sucked out of it. $1.4 million. I hadn't even looked at the number. I was so focused on the betrayal. My head went light. I grabbed the table to keep from falling. My mother made that sound again. No. And if Sophia sold it, Mark said, his voice a hammer, why is her signature here? He pointed. A very, very poor forgery. But your signature, Thomas, as financial guardian, is right here. And your initials, Lillian, as spousal acknowledgement, are right here. He tapped the paper. Tap, tap, tap. You told the realtor you had power of attorney. You told them your daughter was unwell, and that you handled all her affairs. You forged her name. You sold her house. And you stole the money. My grandfather's knuckles were not white anymore. They were blue. He was holding the chair so hard it was shaking. He turned his head. Slowly, he looked at his son. You sold your daughter's house? He whispered. The words were so quiet, but they were the loudest thing I had ever heard. My father's face just crumpled. The anger was gone. The bluster was gone. He was just a little ugly, terrified man. Dad, he said. His voice was a whine. Dad, you don't understand. It was a bad market. The asset was just sitting there. She wasn't ready for it. She wasn't responsible. Ready? The word came out of my mouth. I didn't even know I was going to speak. I looked at my father. My vision was clear. I wasn't crying. I was empty. Ready for what, Dad? I asked. He stared at me, his mouth open. Ready to know I had a house? Ready to know I had a choice? Were you ever going to tell me? We were managing it, Sophia. He yelled. He was desperate. We were managing it for you. You're not ready for that kind of money. You would have wasted it. Like you wasted it? I asked. On Napa? On Aspen? On a new silk blouse? My mother's head snapped up. She looked at me. Her eyes were not sad. They were full of hate. Pure black hate. We did it for you, she hissed. Her voice was a snake's voice. We did it for this family. To maintain our lifestyle. To protect the family name. Something you have never ever understood. Our lifestyle? I said. I wear 2 pairs of socks to bed because my heater is broken. I eat peanut butter for dinner. You weren't protecting a lifestyle. You were funding it. With my money? It was never your money, she shrieked. It was always family money. You are so selfish. You are so ungrateful. After everything we've done for you, you pull this stunt. You bring this vulture. She waved a shaking, wine-stained hand at Mark. Into our home. On Christmas. You've ruined everything. I looked at her. I looked at this woman, my mother, who was standing in a puddle of her own greed. I looked at her pearls, and I finally understood. No, I said. My voice was calm. It was steady. You did it for greed. The room went silent. My mother's mouth snapped shut. My father just stared at the floor. There was nothing left to say. There were no more lies to tell. The truth was on the table. The truth was on the carpet. The silence was thick enough to choke on. It went on for a minute, 2 minutes. Then my grandfather stood up. He let go of the chair. He stood up tall. He was 80 years old, but he looked like the man who built a company from stone. He was shaking. His whole body was shaking. But his voice was strong. He did not look at my mother. He looked at his son, his only son. "Thomas," he said. My father looked up. His eyes were wet. He was trying to cry. He was trying to be the victim. It didn't work. "Get out of my house," Grandpa said. My father flinched. "Dad, Edward. Please, it's Christmas. Get out!" "Lillian," my father said, turning to my mother, begging her to do something. But she was just a statue of hate. She was looking at me. She was frozen. My father grabbed her arm. "Lillian, we're leaving," he pulled her. She stumbled. They looked cheap. They looked like what they were, thieves. They walked out of the dining room. They didn't get their coats. We heard the front door open. We heard the cold winter air rush in. We heard the front door slam. Silence. Mark Steele quietly started to gather the papers. He put them back in the green file. He placed the file in his briefcase. He snapped the latches. Click, click. He looked at my grandfather. "Edward," he said, his voice gentle now. "I'm so sorry." My grandfather didn't seem to hear him. He just stood there, staring at the empty doorway. Then he turned. He looked at me. His face was broken. It was a gray, empty, hollow thing. "Sophia," he whispered. I didn't know. And then his legs gave out. He collapsed. He fell to the floor, right where my mother had been kneeling. "Grandpa!" I screamed. His wife, Helen, screamed. Mark Steele lunged, catching his head just before it hit the hardwood floor. I fell to my knees beside him. His eyes were closed. He wasn't moving. "Call 911, Mark yelled. "Call 911, now!" The world went silent. And then it exploded. "Edward!" Helen, my grandfather's wife, screamed. It was a sound I had never heard before. A sharp, terrible sound of pure fear. I was frozen. I was still on my knees, staring at my grandfather's face. His eyes were closed. His skin was a pale gray color. He looked so old. He looked so small. "Don't move him." Mark Steele's voice was a command. He was on his knees on the other side, his hands gently supporting Grandpa's head, keeping it off the floor. "Helen, call 911, now. Tell them it's a man, 80 years old, sudden collapse, non-responsive." Helen was crying, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. I watched, my mind empty. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel the carpet under my knees. I couldn't feel the air in my lungs. My father did this. My mother did this. I just stared at my grandfather's still face. "Grandpa?" I whispered. "Grandpa, wake up." He didn't move. "They're on their way," Helen sobbed. "Sophia," Mark said. His voice was sharp. It cut through my fog. "Go to the front door, unlock it, and turn on all the outside lights. All of them. So they can see the house." I stood up. My legs felt like wood. I didn't know if they would hold me. "Go. Now." I ran. I ran out of the dining room. I ran past the perfectly set table. I ran past the broken glass and the dark red wine stain that looked like blood. I ran past the beautiful Christmas tree, its lights blinking, blinking, blinking. I hit the switch by the door. The outside lights flashed on, lighting up the snow. It was so bright. It hurt my eyes. I unlocked the deadbolt. I stood by the open door, letting the freezing winter air rush in. I was shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. I heard the sirens. They were far away at first, a thin wail in the night. Then they got closer, louder. They were screaming. The ambulance lights flashed blue and red on the pure white snow. It was a terrible, beautiful, awful sight. The paramedics ran in. They were fast. They were all business. They pushed past me, carrying their bags and a folded stretcher. I just stood by the door, frozen. Mark Steele came out of the dining room. His face was grim. "They're working on him." Helen followed, clutching her hands to her mouth. We just stood in the hallway. We listened to the low, calm voices of the paramedics. We heard the beeps of a machine. "He's breathing," one of them said. "Heart rate is fast but steady. We need to move." They came out of the dining room. My grandfather was on the stretcher. He was covered in a blanket. There was an oxygen mask over his face. His eyes were open. He was looking around, confused. His eyes found me. I rushed forward. I grabbed his hand. It was cold. Sophia, he whispered. His voice was thin. It was a paper voice. I'm here, Grandpa, I choked. I'm right here. It's okay. No, he whispered. His eyes were so sad. No. Okay. We have to go, the paramedic said gently. They rolled him out the door. They loaded him into the ambulance. Helen climbed in beside him. Mark Steele spoke to one of the officers who had arrived. The ambulance doors slammed shut. The sirens started again. The red and blue lights disappeared down the long, dark driveway. And then, it was just me. And Mark Steele. And the snow. The police officer came over. Sir, are you the one who— I am Edward Miller's attorney, Mark said. This was a family dispute. I believe the stress of it caused a medical emergency. And the other parties? The ones who left? The officer asked. Thomas and Lillian Miller, Mark said, his voice flat. They left the scene. We'll need a statement, the officer said. I'll give it at the hospital, Mark said. He looked at me. I was still shaking, my arms wrapped around myself. I was still in my thin blue dress. I was freezing. Mark took off his heavy, expensive wool overcoat. He put it around my shoulders. It was warm. It smelled like leather. Come on, Sophia, he said, his voice softer now. We'll take my car. We have to follow them. The hospital was all white. White walls. White floors. Lights that were too bright. It smelled like bleach and sickness. We sat in the waiting room. Me, Mark, and Helen. We sat for hours. Helen cried into tissues. Mark made phone calls. He talked in a low, angry voice to people. Fraud. Forgery. I want the account frozen. Now. I just sat. I stared at a painting on the wall. It was a picture of a beach. It looked fake. I was empty. I felt like I had been hollowed out. Like someone had reached inside me and scooped everything out. All the sadness. All the anger. All the fear. It was all gone. There was nothing left. I thought about my parents. I thought about them driving away. Where did they go? Did they go back to their big, empty house? Were they drinking? Were they celebrating? They had the money. $1.4 million. Did they know their father? Their father had collapsed? Did they care? No, the answer was so simple. They didn't care. They had never cared. I thought they had just forgotten me. I thought I was just the independent one, the one they didn't need to worry about. But it was worse than that. It wasn't neglect. It was a choice. They chose to hurt me. They chose to steal from me. And they chose to leave their father on the floor. A doctor came out. He was in blue scrubs. He looked tired. Family of Edward Miller? We all stood up. Helen grabbed my hand. Her hand was ice cold. Your husband is stable, the doctor said to Helen. His heart is strong. It wasn't a heart attack. It wasn't a stroke. Helen let out a breath. It was what we call a vasovagal syncope, the doctor said. A sudden, severe drop in heart rate and blood pressure, caused by a moment of extreme emotional distress. He fainted. The collapse was traumatic, but all his tests came back clear. He is very, very lucky. He looked at us. He is, however, completely exhausted. And his blood pressure is still high. We're keeping him overnight, just for observation. But he's going to be fine. Can we see him? Helen whispered. He's sleeping, the doctor said. It's the best thing for him. You should all go home and get some rest. You can come back in the morning. Mark drove us home, back to my grandfather's house. The house was cold. The Christmas lights were still blinking. The broken glass was still on the floor. The red wine stain was still there. Helen went upstairs to my grandfather's room. Mark looked at me. His face was hard to read. You should sleep, Sophia, he said. I can't. I'm going back to my office, he said. I have work to do. It's 4 a.m, I said. Crime doesn't sleep, he said. He gave me a small, tired smile. You were very brave. Your grandfather is proud of you. He left. I heard his car drive away. I was alone. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I just walked into the sunroom. It was a room in the back of the house, all windows. It was my grandfather's favorite place. I sat in a wicker chair. I watched the blackness outside turn into a dark, gray morning. The snow was blue. I didn't move. I just sat. By morning, the sun was trying to come out. It was a weak winter sun. It made the snow sparkle. I saw the tracks in the snow. The car tracks from my parents' car fleeing down the long driveway. They were already frozen. They were carved into the ground. I was still in the chair. I had a cup of coffee in my hands. Helen had made it for me. It was now cold. I was holding it, but I wasn't drinking it. I heard a sound. My grandfather was standing in the doorway. He was in his bathrobe. He looked old. He looked pale. He looked frail. "Grandpa," I whispered. I stood up. "You should be in bed." The doctor said I'm fine," he said. His voice was rough. He walked into the room. He sat in the chair across from me. We sat in silence for a long time. We just watched the light on the snow. Finally, he spoke. His voice was so quiet. "I thought money could keep people honest," he said. He was looking out the window. "He wasn't looking at me, I thought," he said, his voice breaking. "That if I gave him enough, a title, a salary, a big house, I thought it would make him a good man. I thought it would make him happy." He shook his head. "I just gave him a bigger shovel. To dig a bigger hole, I didn't know what to say. I just watched him. I'm so sorry, Sophia," he whispered. I knew what they were like. I knew they were selfish, vain. I knew they neglected you. I knew they were careless." He turned to look at me. His eyes were full of tears. But I did not know they were cruel. I did not know they were thieves. I did not know, my own son. The tears started to roll down his face. "You gave them too much trust," I whispered. It was the only thing I could think of. "I gave him my name," he said. "And he stained it. He sold his own daughter for $1.4 million. The number hung in the air. "I am so sorry, Sophia," he said again. "I did this. I let this happen. No," I said. "No, I did it. I brought Mr. Steele. I set them up. I ruined Christmas. I made you sick." "No," he said. He reached across the small table and took my hand. His hand was warm again. It was his old strong hand. "You did not do this. The truth did this. You just opened the door for it. You were the only one brave enough." He squeezed my hand. "I have never, ever been more proud of you than I was last night." I started to cry. The emptiness was gone. It was replaced by a deep, aching sadness. I cried for him. I cried for the family I never had. I cried for the little girl who just wanted her parents to notice her. He let me cry. After a long time, I stopped. I wiped my face. "Mark was here," Grandpa said quietly. "He was back to business." "What?" "He was here at 6 a.m. He's been working all night. He's a very efficient man. Is the money gone?" I asked. Grandpa smiled. It was a small, cold smile. "No," he said. "Mark froze their accounts at 3 a.m. He contacted the buyer's lawyers before dawn. He presented them with the criminal complaint. Forgery, wire fraud. The buyers, who are a very respectable couple, were horrified. They did not want to be in possession of stolen property. They immediately agreed to nullify the sale. So, what does that mean?" He let go of my hand. He reached down beside his chair. He picked up a large brown envelope and slid it across the table. "It means," he said, "that Mark is a shark, and your parents are very, very small fish." I looked at the envelope. My name was on it. Sophia Miller. My hands were shaking. I opened it. Inside, there was a stack of papers. On top, a deed. It was my name. Clean, legal. "He put the fear of God into them," Grandpa said. He called Thomas at 7 a.m. He told him that he had two choices. He could sign the reversal, or he could be arrested. Forgery of a legal deed is a 20-year felony, Sophia. So is wire fraud. "They signed it," I whispered. "They signed it. They signed away all rights to the property. They signed a document admitting to the fraud. They signed a document agreeing to pay back every single cent they ever took from my accounts in your name. Mark has a very long list." He leaned forward. "The house is yours again," he said quietly. "It's in an irrevocable trust. No one can ever touch it. It is yours. And only yours. Forever." I stared at the paper. My name, my house, I had it. I had won, but I didn't feel like I had won. I just felt tired. I felt so tired. I don't even know if I want it anymore. I whispered. The tears came back. It's dirty. It's covered in their greed. It's not a safe place anymore. It's just a house. Grandpa looked at me. His face was full of love. He smiled. It was a real smile this time. "That's okay," he said. It is? Yes, he said. That's perfectly okay. You can sell it. You can keep it. You can go there and scream. You can let it sit empty for 10 years. It doesn't matter. He leaned in close. The house was never the gift, Sophia. The choice was the gift. And you have earned the choice. I looked at the deed. And I looked at my grandfather. And for the first time in my life, I felt what he had promised me all those years ago. I felt safe. A week passed. It was the first week of the new year. I stayed at my grandfather's house. We didn't talk about what happened. Not really. There was no need. We sat in the sunroom. We drank coffee. I cooked dinner. He taught me how to play his favorite card game. It was quiet. It was healing. My parents were gone. They were a void. They didn't call. They didn't text. They had vanished, taking their shame with them. Mark Steele was handling the rest. He called it unwinding their finances. I just called it justice. On a bright, cold morning, I woke up. The sky was a sharp, clear blue. I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel empty. I just felt ready. I took the keys to my grandfather's old truck, the ones he'd left on the table for me. I didn't say where I was going. I didn't have to. I drove for an hour, out of the city, toward the lake. The roads were clear, but the trees were heavy with snow. It was so bright. The world looked like it was covered in diamonds. I turned onto the small, quiet road, Pacific Lane. I pulled up to the house. My house. I just sat in the truck for a long time, looking at it. It was just as I'd seen in the picture. A small cedar-shingled house. It was tucked into the pine trees. Snow blanketed the roof, thick and white. A little wisp of smoke was coming from the chimney. Mark had sent someone to turn on the heat and check the pipes. The air smelled like cedar and cold water and forgiveness. I got out of the truck. My boots crunched on the clean snow. It was so quiet. The only sound was a bird, somewhere in the trees. I walked up the stone path. I took the new clean key out of my pocket, the one Mark had given me. My hand was not shaking. I put the key in the lock. It turned smoothly. I pushed the door open. The air inside was warm. The house was empty. Just big empty rooms with wood floors. Sunlight was pouring in through the big windows. It was dust-free. It was clean. It was a blank page. I stood in the entryway. I could see my own breath in the cold morning light coming through the door. I looked at the sunlight on the floor. "It would suit your sunlight, Sophia," I smiled. A real smile. "Home," I whispered. The word just hung in the air. It was a small word, but it was the biggest word in the world. Justice didn't roar that day. It didn't scream. It didn't need to. It just exhaled. It was the quiet sound of a key turning in a lock. My parents wanted me to earn my life. They wanted me to be independent and to build character. They just never thought I would do it. I did. If this story hits close to your heart, don't scroll yet. Tell me where you're watching from, because sometimes peace isn't given. It's reclaimed.